I found out one of our medical devices you can actually use on dogs.
Wow. Is that a real thing?
And Stanley's, the cups, they came out and they said that you could keep ice in them and for a fire, an explosion, and they just put a Stanley with ice in it, blew the car up, and the ice apparently was still there. It got proven that it wasn't, and it was a marketing ploy.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to another unedited conversation with me, Ed Gould. And I've just been listening back to the conversation you're about to hear today, and it's with Lauren Clements, who runs marketing for a major medtech firm that specializes in cosmetics, aesthetics and injectables. Now you're thinking, Ed, have you had anything done recently? No. And if you head over to the YouTube video, you'll see for yourself that that is 100% true. But I am fascinated in this multi-billion-dollar industry that's growing at a rate of knots. From a marketing perspective, Lauren has accelerated her career by being in an industry that's growing at pace. And she tells a backstory of how she went from working in clinics, helping them connect with customers, all the way through to the point where she is now, which is leading the marketing for a major med tech company. Keep listening, because this one is packed full of insights, not just about the aesthetics market, which was fascinating and I didn't know much about that, but also about the challenges there within for marketeers, creators and technologists. Lauren also shares a really powerful story about how early on in her career she realized what good looked like, where she refused to use doctored images, and she talks about how honesty, authenticity is never more critical in a market where you're playing with people's health. Now, the aesthetic market, you'll be thinking of Botox, but it's about more than that. You've got Manjaro now, but you've also got well-being and health devices that are really changing people's lives for the better. So we also get into how you evolve the messaging and the proposition of a whole industry from purely the aesthetic to the more well-being products. So it's a real masterclass as usual. And Lauren, although who has not been working in the industry for as long as many of us, has had to learn a lot in a short space of time. So listen right till the end, where she's got some tips, both on how to approach aesthetics if you're in the market for some, but also how to deal with the marketing challenges there within. So if you're ready and if you're willing, let's sit back, relax, and get ready for another unedited conversation. Hi everybody, and welcome to another unedited conversation with me, Ed Gould. So today we're talking about a young but very fast growing, not person, industry, and that is the aesthetics industry. And I reached out to Lauren, who'll introduce herself in a second, a while ago. I'm really pleased she's on the show because it's an area in an industry I think people are fascinated with. Everyone knows it's growing fast, but what's going on within it? What is it like marketing within that space? What are the challenges? So I'm gone too far, aren't I? Let's let Lauren introduce herself. So tell us who you are and where you're from.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I am from the aesthetics industry. I'm only 28, which is probably a subject we'll get onto in a bit. But I work in a company that specialises in medtech. They've been around for 30 years. We now are heavily in the aesthetics division. And I have basically worked my way up from in a very short 4 years to where I am now, which hopefully we can get into.
We'll get into it. And I think for our listeners, you might be thinking, well, hang on a minute, she's only been working for 4 years. Why are we talking to Lauren? Yeah. Well, when we spoke, I think the reason I wanted to get you on this is it's a different view. You're new into the industry. You're new into marketing, but you have very strong and understandable views about what was going on within it. And I think we'll get into this. But I think first of all, let's try and give our listeners a bit of an idea about the aesthetics industry as a whole. So what are we actually talking about? So you're med tech through, but can you sort of describe your view of the industry, as it were?
So the industry is absolutely massive. It's grown very quickly. It's essentially still in its infancy, really, we could say, but now it's valued at about, aesthetics itself is valued at about 3.2 billion.
In the UK.
In the UK.
I think I was reading I'm cheating. I've got the global stats. So you're looking at it, it's worth 82 billion 2023, and it's expected to grow to about 143 billion by 2030, which is just fueled by the incessant need of us as individuals and humans to be the best versions of ourselves, I guess. And is that the definition of aesthetics? It's non-medical. You don't need it. Or how would you describe the definition of that?
I think it is evolving completely, and I think originally maybe you wouldn't have needed it, but now there are options that are enhancing your quality of life. They are making people's lives better. But yeah, I guess the definition of aesthetics would be that non-invasive. I mean, the increase is fueled by the non-invasive, non-surgical treatments. Predominantly, when you think of aesthetics, you think it's someone looking better, right?
Yeah.
But there's layers to it. There's way more to it.
So I guess from the outside, I'd go, okay, it's Botox and it's what's the weight loss one called?
Mounjaro.
I mean, these are huge at the moment. I don't think if you're listening to this, if you don't know someone, well, the truth is you do know someone, they just haven't told you. But it seems to be a huge thing, the weight loss bit. And I'll be open and declare I've benefited from a medical point of view from Botox because I suffer from migraines. So, but it's not just those injectables. What type of machines do you guys make, and what does that? How wide does it go now?
So essentially, if you've got anything, we've got a device for that. But I would say some of the standouts that we have is, especially in terms of improving someone's quality of life, would be the Emsella chair. So that is a chair for incontinence. It's increasing your pelvic floor muscles. It's completely changing people's lives. But then you have microneedling for skin rejuvenation. You've got M-Face for lifting and toning of facial muscles and increasing collagen and elastin. There's essentially a device for everything. You've got functional health devices which increase muscles in your body, but then help you stand up and improve sort of the way that you can move and your mobility.
So it's not just this idea of women going for Botox injections or having a Botox party.
Not anymore, no.
That market is really broad. And it spans into the medtech sector, into pharma, but it's that crossover. But it is identified as aesthetics in our game, I guess, and is what we're talking about. So, in terms of the marketing within that, what's been your journey? I know you've not been there long, but give us. You told me off camera you started in clinics and then you came into that. Can you tell us a bit of a story about how you've ended up in this space?
So how I got into it is it was kind of by luck, essentially. I studied fashion communication at university, and it was COVID time, and I was just needed to get out of Eastbourne. I needed to leave, and I applied for this job in a really well-known clinic in London to be their social media manager. And fashion communication, business studies, it aligns essentially. I was very creative. I was intrigued by the industry, so I moved up, and within a year I was the marketing manager there. But that's not strange to happen
in that market.
No, not at all.
And why is that?
Because usually in clinics you will see the reception doing the marketing, you will see front of house staff doing all the social media, which is fine, and they can do a great job of it. But I think that common miscommunication is that they just think marketing is social media, or it's just updating your website. And that's when you start to really feel the emphasis of what marketing can be. So when I had to take that jump from just doing the socials to then learning what SEO was, managing Google Ads agencies, making sure that we were sending out email communications that actually converted, it was a huge jump. But I mean, I'm one of them people that...
Trust me, I'm loving hearing this because all of my friends think all I do is a bit of social media.
I'm sure.
and the reality of where the marketing industry is now. If you're in charge of a marketing function, you're having to be an expert in so many different things. It's quite hard. So how did you find those clinic days, and why did you leave there?
I think I nearly fell into the trap where I felt that because I was producing a lot of content, that was what marketing was. And I never really took time to sit back and think, what is the strategy behind this? Why am I doing what I'm doing? And that's when I moved on to sort of a larger clinic, and I was part of a wider team.
And you started seeing how things went together.
Exactly. You didn't need one person to do absolutely everything. Granted, it was a much bigger clinic, but you can then sort of unravel them layers of what more there is to marketing.
Okay. And from a clinic point of view, what are the challenges for marketing? Or how did you read that? What is a typical strategy for a clinic?
I think in terms of challenges, I think it's resource. They don't see the marketing for them is a huge investment, and finding that within their budgets that aren't always guaranteed, it's scary for them. But the usual strategy that you would potentially see was, say you're launching a new device or a new treatment, they would just hit all of them kind of common pillars of socials, email. But now I would say a more successful strategy would be, okay, how are we going to launch this, and then funnel back down. It's same with anything, really, any product that you'd be releasing.
And I guess one of the other things that is worth commenting on from that aesthetics and clinic side, at the risk of offending as well, is it can be done wrong. It's a hell of a... we were talking off camera about the balance and how you keep that balance right between enthusing people to try the product versus enthusing the wrong people to get hooked on a product, for instance. How did you see that play out in a clinic? Was that part of the consideration? Because it must impact brand if you get that balance wrong. But how do you read that?
It's very difficult, and especially when you're promoting products which are commenting on people's aesthetics and their appearance, and there are times you mess it up. And for example, there was a time when I was in clinic and we were pushing out this filtered image, and I took a step back and I thought to myself, this is not where my morals lie. I can't be part of...
So so we understand, so the listener can understand. So you're in a clinic professing to improve the look of people, but you're using an image that had basically been doctored with Photoshop or whatever. And why did they feel the need to do that?
I think the issue there is that people are looking for the impossible. The perfection. And that isn't going to be achieved. And now I think the industry has had a huge shift where the non-invasive and the slower results are kind of more favoured. But back a couple of years ago, people wanted dramatic results. And you can get them dramatic results, of course you can, with a lot of filler. So these images that were filtered were going to go out, but I wasn't comfortable with it.
Did you have any I guess you didn't have any barometer to measure that against, but it's the first time maybe you thought, hang on a minute, this isn't what marketing should be.
But you don't ever want to say no in your first job to the big man, do you?
Think you're going to get fired, but what did you do?
So I was honest. And I said, look, this campaign is still going to land even if we show human results. This is still going to work. And instead of just putting out this image, which if we had put it out, people aren't stupid.
No, it would have been counterproductive.
100%. So,
if not slightly illegal.
Well,
advertising standards, not illegal, but advertising standards.
Well, no, it would have been. Yeah, exactly that. So it's just about holding your own at that point. And if you're not comfortable in doing that, then that's fine. But that was such a learning curve for me, because that's what's threaded me into what I'm doing now. So
you're now, for the context for the guys listening, you're not in clinic anymore.
No.
Was that the last clinic you worked for?
No. So
you went on
I've
and
done
then
a
moved
few,
in.
yeah.
Okay. Why did you move out of clinic into manufacturer?
One, it was kind of thrown on me a bit, but I always had the devices within our clinic that the manufacturer that I work for now created. So I knew the technology. And for me, it was a long time coming. I was really interested in longevity, wellness, improving people's quality of life, and devices slot perfectly into that, especially the ones that we produce. Of course, I'm going to say that, but it's the clinical data behind it.
But you see it. You've seen you're allowed to say that because you've seen the impact that they have.
For sure. And it's seeing the clinical studies behind it. It's seeing the data, but also feeling it yourself. You try out these devices and you feel your muscles tensing in ways that you would never have been able to do on your own. And you can really feel the impact on people's quality of life with that.
So you made the jump from clinic into the manufacturing. And so what do you do there now? What's your job at the moment?
So I'm currently the UK marketing lead, which is quite crazy to think. But when I started there, I was the marketing specialist. So I was brought in to support our clinics once they had brought our devices.
And the business is a global business or European or?
So we're a Czech company and we are now in over 80 countries,
wow,
I think.
okay.
Maybe even 90 now.
So we're talking about a very large organisation with different teams all over the world trying to engage with your old employers, the clinics, I guess. So the marketing challenge is, how do you stay relevant? And so what do you do? What's your approach to that as a marketeer? How do you go about your business?
It's just crazy because we do have over 10 devices that cater for different things. It's not one size fits all. But you also have a team of salespeople that you also need to support. So you've got to be really strategic with it. You don't just want to be a sales asset. You want them to believe and understand your campaigns, what your focus is. So in terms of strategy, it is about looking at what our focus is in terms of sales, and then we will kind of go from there. But again, it's looking at trends as well. So at the moment, we've got a huge trend on longevity and biohacking and subjects like that. So finding what suits in there and what messaging we can put out there, but also how we educate the clinics.
And do you guys treat it as a house of brands and they're all separate products within there, or is there a focus on selling the brand of the business as a whole? Is there a cohesive approach, or is it more, okay, here's our biohacking machine number one, let's create the campaign around that one and go out with that? What's the balance between overall brand and product?
I would love to say that we have just one for one and one for the other. We obviously want to push the brand, of course. We want people to know who BTL are. But in terms of the devices, they usually are their own entities.
And that's common in a sales-led business as well, because you're trying to give the sales aids and to the team. So that's very common. So we were talking earlier, I think one of the things that pricked my imagination as you were talking about biohacking was that Brian Johnson guy that we mentioned earlier that's going to live forever.
Yeah, of course.
And if you haven't seen this guy online, guys, however old you are, go and have a look at this guy and try and guess how old he is. But this is a man who I think he's I can't remember what he spends. He's a big millionaire. He's got a lot of different, but he is effectively biohacking himself with the aim of longevity. So is this a theme that existed before? Is he part of that push? Is he part of that sort of trend? Or is biohacking a much broader thing than a middle-aged guy who wants to stay young?
If you speak to doctors, longevity's always been around. They've always been focusing.
Fountain of youth.
Of course, exactly. And they've always been
We've always been looking for it.
How are we going to stay young? But not only just through the looks, but through how you function.
Yeah.
I just think now there's just been an absolute spotlight on it. And I think that's because people aren't as fussed with how they look, but they are fussed with how they age.
So do you feel there's a shift within the market to do with that well-being and health versus looks alone now? And that's opening up a much bigger market potentially because dare I say it, it's quite leaning towards female. The injectables are mainly on the whole geared up towards women. Mainly. That's not, I've run the risk. I'm going to run the risk of getting absolutely told off by all sorts of communities here. And broadly, biohacking suddenly turns into a much more, I don't know, so it feels a much more everybody sort of thing, or even, dare I say it, masculine sort of term.
Yeah, it is. But it's a very important term, especially when you are working with doctors where they want to push limits. They want to bring the best treatments and the best opportunities for their patients. So as a device manufacturer, we need to see how we can cater to that. And we're lucky because even though our devices are entities of their own, when they are combined, it just slots perfectly into that. So the marketing, although it is very standalone, you can combine them and they can be together.
Okay, so we've got these interesting new products that are coming out all the time, and you're sat there in a team going, okay, how do we go out to market? So what are the biggest challenges in your space, and how do you try and work out how to tackle them?
I feel like you can't ever predict what the challenges are going to be. Majority of the time, it's lack of education, I would say.
Within the clinicians?
Within how clinics know how to market.
Okay.
So
you might make something and they understand it's good,
yeah,
but they can't sell it for toffee.
They know the technology, they believe in the technology, they can see the proof behind it, but how do I pitch this to my patients?
Okay, so what do you do about that then?
So we have had a huge shift on our after sales. So we put a lot of marketing time, and now we've put in actual resource for people to go in and essentially teach them how to do exactly that per device.
So you're almost having to drive the industry from inside it to get the usage that you need on those machines, which I assume are very expensive, and they only get paid for if they get the usage. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
For sure. It's almost like you're going to buy a really expensive car, but then we're going to come along and help you drive it around, which is brilliant.
That would be great. I'd love that. I mean, Louis knows why that would be great for me at the moment. I'm mainly on a bicycle, so that would be wonderful. So you going into clinics and working with them? Are you giving them sales aids? What are you actually doing?
All of the above.
Okay.
We hold workshops. We connect them with really great agencies. We go in, we give them consultation training, front of house training. In terms of marketing, we'll go in and do an audit of everything that they're currently doing, offer our suggestions on how they could potentially improve that. It is so bespoke.
Okay.
Every clinic needs something different.
If there was a couple, so with the experience you've got so far, if I was starting my clinic tomorrow with Louis, I'm just going to do the front of house. He's going to be the doctor. But what on the marketing side? What's the three most important things for us to actually think about if we're in this market?
100%. My first port of call is get your website up and running. Just having a really good treatment page. That's something that I often see is often neglected. It's a lot of budget as well. That clinics perhaps don't want to put towards, but just nailing that landing
And when you
page.
think about that content and what's nailing, because anyone can build a website, there's bloody millions of them all over the place. They're cropping up every 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And the amount of shit websites there are, excuse my French, but it's...
No, you're right.
So what advice would you give a clinic about the tone of how they approach that? Because you were talking earlier about misrepresentation through the imagery. What should they be projecting? It's
got to be your own, and it's got to be honest. A lot of the times you'll see very stock imagery, and it's just not going to cut it in this day and age. It's not. So you really need to do that videography shoot, get some really clear before and after pictures. This is a huge subject in aesthetics, is really nailing them before and after pictures.
And are all those before and after pictures, they're all real? Or, I just imagine, is it about you having your own case studies and it's your work? Or are you supplying those to places to say, look, this machine, this is a before and after?
So we will supply a certain amount, but patients aren't silly. They will start seeing, okay, well, I've seen that same before and after picture at A and B clinic.
Yeah.
So we really push for clinics to get their own content, and we have amazing partners that do incredible before and after pictures, and that's what sells it. And people are skeptic. You need to make sure that you're really almost leaving no room for doubt in every single picture.
I guess it's mine and Louis' new what are we calling our aesthetic studio, Louis? Oh, put you on the spot. Great name. Great name. I mean, that's why we're in marketing team.
Well done.
But, all the listeners are thinking, when's Ed and Louis' new put you on the spot clinic going to open? But there's about 15 others. It's so competitive.
It's very saturated.
How do you, when you're talking to the clinics and when you're talking to these businesses, how do you get them to stand out? Which ones do succeed? Have you seen a trend in the ones that are more successful than others?
For sure. And if you look at some places like London, where they've got the same device 2 doors down.
Yeah.
And it is, but they all succeed. And this is because they're pushing their value. they each have their own niche. Every clinic will be aiming at a slightly different demographic, not every single one.
And they've had to
course.
learn that the hard way because the competition's so huge.
It is. In places up north, you're fine, in not all wet regions, but some. But it is really about pushing your value. What sets you apart? And how can you portray that through your marketing?
I mean, this is standard. You said you're not being you're exactly bang on. I mean, that's the secret sauce of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Can you be authentic? Could anyone give a toss if you do it? Does it matter? Yeah. And the way that you present that, is that in a way that's really digestible and easy to understand, so you're not making me do a load of work? I mean, brands like Patagonia, these authentic brands that actually live it. I know that sounds ridiculous thinking about Patagonia, a clothing brand next to aesthetics, but it is the same ingredients and the same approach to get right.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, do you think the aesthetics industry as a whole and the clinics that you've seen, do they share more in common with medical and dentistry than they do with sort of clothing? And do you think there's lessons that should be brought across?
Yeah, for sure. So I always compared the aesthetics industry to the fashion industry.
Okay.
Because I study fashion, and when I left, I always said, you've got your couture fashion, you've got your high-end doctors, you've got your
Harley Street doctors.
You've got your fast fashion, which is probably your girl that's done a week course in Manchester and now she's doing her friend's lips. And it needs that kind of regulation, which luckily the aesthetics industry is getting. But also, I think in terms of dentistry, I mean, dentists do have aesthetic equipment.
And because they're blending, aren't they, really?
For sure. They are medics. They're all medics, and they all have their own right. And aesthetics is a huge selling business. So why wouldn't they invest in something like that? So
when you're dealing with something which is verging towards medical and it's very regulated, how do you manage storytelling? Because it's such an important part of what we all do as marketeers. And you started at the visual end of that, probably with social. But do you find storytelling around the devices and the difference it makes, is that part of what you do? Or is it more features and benefits?
No, storytelling. Because people want to see the benefit that this has on their patients. It's not, like we said earlier, they understand the technology, they understand how it works, but storytelling in terms of getting a real patient to talk about their experience.
It's worth way more, yeah.
It's the one key benefit that I really push clinics to get. If you can get that patient to talk about how this treatment, especially things like incontinence treatments, or if they've struggled with core strength and they haven't been able to walk or keep themselves upright for too long, talking about their human experience that's the key.
And I mean, it's an industry that gets a lot of support indirectly from the media anyway. You know, there's a lot of programs about aesthetics. There's a lot of news constantly. So I guess that a lot of the clinics have thought the work will just come in anyway. But we're now coming to a more mature. I mean, we're talking about. It started probably in the 80s. It started gathering sort of, and the 90s, and by 2000 you're really seeing that explosion of sort of different clinics all over the place. But do you think it's now maturing into a space where you can't rely on, just the volume of people finding, because everyone knows about aesthetics now, don't they? Yeah,
there's a very fine line, and I think a lot of the effort that we put in is for that consumer awareness, and that will always have its place. We need to make sure that people are seeing these treatments for trust. But in terms of clinics doing it themselves, that does need to be bespoke. They do need to speak directly to their audience. They may see it on This Morning, but then how are they going to imagine themselves having the treatment in the little town of Lewis or wherever they live?
Yeah, make it real.
They need to relate to it.
Okay.
But that brand awareness does need to be there nationally anyway.
Okay. Right, we're going to take a break for a second, because the reason that you are wearing headphones, as you found out earlier, is Louis, the aforementioned Louis, that one day will come on camera. I promise you, listeners, he loves you all, has made us Louis's lightning round again. So let's see what Louis has to offer us.
No time to think. No messing around. Get your answers ready. It's Louis's lightning round.
That's good.
Pink?
Yes.
Pink.
What's the most bizarre fact about the aesthetics industry?
The most bizarre fact.
That's a hard one.
Yeah, that's crazy. Maybe that I found out one of our medical devices you can actually use on dogs.
Wow.
And the graphic for it is really cute.
We do have a good client that works in the pet industry, so we'll connect you up. So is that a real thing that people?
I don't know if we actually sell it to the dog. Well, obviously not to the dogs, but to the vets. But yeah, it's safe for dogs.
You happy with that? Is that outrageous enough, Louis?
That's good.
Yeah, he's happy with that, listeners.
If you weren't in this industry, what industry would you be working in?
Oh, good one. I would be a chef.
Do you have any experience of that?
I used to fry burgers in a little cafe. I'm not like SpongeBob, but I would be maybe like a little chef. Little chef.
Well,
I miss Little Chef.
Yeah, I don't think they're around anymore. Okay, last one.
What's the best marketing campaign you've ever seen?
I've ever seen. Do you know what it is? You know, in Stanley's, the cups, they came out and they said that you could keep ice in them, and for a fire, an explosion, and they just put a Stanley with ice in it, blew the car up, and the ice apparently was still there. I mean, it got proven that it wasn't, and it was a marketing ploy, but I thought it was brilliant.
But it worked because you're telling me about it.
And I've got a Stanley.
So you like demonstrative marketing.
Yeah,
I mean,
very
you've talked
visual.
about case studies. You've talked about Stanley. You're too young to remember. There was an advert for No More Nails with a guy glued to a board. And then they lured him down across some sharks.
I would have liked that.
That's some of my favourite sort of stuff as well. Okay, so let's get back on. Thank you, Louis. Round of applause for Louis. Lovely lightning round there, Louis. What do you think other sectors? I mean, I get to work in all sorts of different sectors, and one of the things I love doing is stealing ideas from one industry and then showing it to a new industry and pretending it was my idea. But don't let anyone know that, everybody. So, from the aesthetics industry or your experience so far, what do you think other industries could take from it and learn?
I think, I don't know. I guess it's that storytelling again, like we said. Them patients talking to camera. You don't see it too much where their real customers are just talking very sort of naturally about how this has changed their life without it seeming too salesy. You've got that very fine line.
It's a hard thing to do, and I think if you can make someone, I mean, without putting too fine a point on it, talk about something as personal as incontinence, which is a really big thing to be able to do, then I guess the question is, have they been paid to do that? That's the sort of thing in my mind when I always see that stuff. And of course they will have, because why would they just come on TV and start? Yeah. But the sort of case study piece, it's always been a lever to pull in every marketing campaign. I guess what's different in that aesthetic space is it's so personal.
Yeah, and I think even talking about the payment, I think you'd be so surprised with how when patients have
when
they've had a genuinely good and life-changing treatment, they do most of the time want to talk about it. Not all the time, of course, and they will normally do it from just their heart, not for payment.
How does it work with, because obviously influencers are a big part of the aesthetics industry. How do those sort of agreements typically work? Is it literally they're getting free work and they're doing that, or how open and honest is that in your opinion?
It will depend. If you're looking at your micro influencers, then usually they'll do it in exchange for treatments, but there's never really any kind of contractual obligation to have to then post about it. But in the same vein, it's the same as any other industry that if you paid someone enough to talk about a treatment, they would. But any kind of collaborations that we really get involved in, we want them to believe in it, whether that's press, PR. I mean, PR's a different kettle of fish because if they don't like it, they'll either slag it off or they won't talk about it. But it's very similar to other industries. But usually it's either for treatment or you pay them.
Yeah. And what if you had sort of £100 in your market, an imaginary budget, and there's your cake? What sort of, how would you split it between paid, earned and owned in your sort of market? So I think this would be different if I was a clinic than I was you, because the clinics just don't have the budget to really think in that way. But for the bigger organisations within aesthetics, do you think like earned and PR and comms is more valuable? Would you put more of the cake on that or more on paid? How would you split your budget if I gave you your everything you wanted budget wise?
I think so. what kind of campaign that we've been doing is actually investing directly into our customers.
So you're
So we'd
paying
give
into the
them
channel
budget,
so,
and then they would give them a few activations, a lot of it into paid social, just to drive leads into booked appointments. But in terms of influencer, I probably wouldn't at the moment. As a B2B company,
It's
really
not right
invest in
for you
that.
guys.
There's not much point.
And it's weird. Is there? I guess there's massive chains now of clinics as well, and they have that sort of budget pool, and they can
they
do
will get
that.
people like Vogue Williams to come in, like Therapy Clinic, use Vogue Williams, Joanne McNally, and they're amazing. It's done great marketing for them. But for us, more of our focus is on our KOLs, so our key opinion leaders in terms of doctors, practitioners, and that's more just that they want to collaborate with us.
And so, if there was something that you could change about your industry and what you're doing, I mean, you've had a bit of time in there, and also you've got the energy to do it. So, you know, maybe. But if you wanted to think about what's next in that industry, how am I going to change it up? What could I improve and do differently? What are you hoping to do and change within that space?
I think it's awareness of marketing and the power of marketing. And a lot of clinics say to me, look, I've had this meeting with a marketing agency and they've given me all the lingo, but I don't understand
I haven't got a clue.
I have no idea.
And this is a lesson to all of us marketing agencies out there. There's a lot of bullshit that goes. There's just so much marketing isms.
Yeah.
And you when you're in the industry, you start thinking that that's how everyone talks. I mean, honestly, people like think, and it's very off-putting for people. The other thing that on that as well, which I found from clients, and this is being dreadfully honest, really, is we were doing detailed reporting for a long time, and then one of my clients said, "By the way, I've got no idea what a single thing means in that. I don't value it at all," and that was costing us and them money and time to do that. So you really have to think about when you're engaging with the business that you're working with, how do I get on their level?
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that they're worse, but it's just a different perspective.
Yeah.
So when they're doing that, how can you help them with that? What would you change?
I would just educate. Education. People need to learn the value of it, see why they need to do a paid campaign, what is the revenue they're going to get from that. And when they start to see the results coming through, that's when they understand it. But if you're proposing this huge idea of this meta campaign that you need to do A, B, and C, and then this will happen and you move into this phase, it's really hard to digest. So it's just breaking it down. I think that's what the industry needs. It's a bit more, just slow down a bit, understand that not everyone's on the same page, and educate the people that you're selling to.
And do you guys what you're talking about is really being a thought leader in that space and trying to shape that. Do you do conferences where you're going through this sort of ideas and you're talking to them, and do people buy into that? Do they like that?
Yeah, so we heavily focus on a lot of webinars, whether that is from myself or whether that is from a partnered marketing agency that we really stand by and share values with. Or if it's our KOLs, our doctors that have really flown in the industry. And you might mix them
together and go, what does success look like?
Exactly, but not only just from how much money have they made, but how have they integrated things into their business? How have they clinically treated a concern that perhaps is more specialised? It is really about education through that 360 holistic view. And
what do you think about younger people coming through? If I'm a younger person, give me some of your products and I'll get close, maybe. But for our younger listeners that are just starting out in their career, I mean, you represent a shining example of how fast things, maybe faster than you expected, but you're now in a really good position within a good business that's doing really interesting stuff around the world. What advice would you give them?
So I think at my age now, what I've realised is instead of just trying to pretend that I know everything, I've learned to kind of just start listening to people and just thinking what the things I'm learning can then move my brand forward. It doesn't need to rush into a certain space. I don't need to claim that I know absolutely everything. Just keep your ear to the ground, keep on learning.
I think that's very good advice. And, as soon as you think you know it all, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
You're in real trouble. And you're bored is the other
sure.
thing. So staying curious. Yeah. So what does that career journey look like for younger people coming out of marketing? Is it very mixed within the industry? Because you've talked about two examples here, really. One is in a clinic where maybe it's like working in a small business. Really, well, it is working in a small business. Is there enough training specifically for aesthetics and medical for marketing? Should there be steps taken to actually try and strengthen the quality of those people, or do you think you just learn on the job?
I mean, I definitely just learnt on the job. A lot of my course did have marketing intertwined. It was communication, but most of it I just learnt on the job. And I think if you ask for it, most of the time they hopefully will give that to you. I got a lot of SEO training. I had Google Ads courses, web enhancement courses, loads of different learning opportunities. But there isn't specialised aesthetic marketing, no.
Which is weird, because if you work in pharma and if you work in financial, which is highly regulated spaces, then there's quite a big volume and range of different things you can do as a marketeer to specialise in that area. It would be interesting to think of whether the skills businesses and the training companies listen to this and go, hang on, there's an opportunity. I mean, I work with one great company that trains a lot of the clinicians. And they train the people that train the clinicians, but there's never anything in marketing about that. And I often find that marketing is sort of, well, you do marketing so you can fit in, but how you bring people into the themes that you've talked about, the ethics, the authenticity, so that they don't just repeat the mistakes that other people have learned from. And
they will make a lot of mistakes from doing that.
I think that's an important bit. So to round off, what do you hope for the future? Where do you think things are going for you in that space? And what, if we came back in 5 years' time, where do you hope to be at that point, and what are you hoping for?
It's so hard to tell. I think if I could have
Shoot
ever
for the moon.
predicted my president in America, and no, I think I have been so lucky with where I've got to now. I know I'm a hard worker. I've obviously put in the effort. I'm not just saying it's all down to luck, but I couldn't guarantee. I think consultancy, maybe something along them lines. I really thrive in helping people and education, so something that would cater to that. But I do love aesthetics. I find it so interesting.
Well, it sounds like you've got a great opportunity to do that within that space. And you've got a business that might well benefit from that. So it's probably worth thinking about that conversation with them. But those ideas of sort of shaping that thought leadership and inspiring that better quality of communications through all of those small businesses. The reasons it's important is, this country's built on small businesses, and the more businesses that thrive, the more people have got jobs, the more people that job, there's a beneficial for everything in there. So I hope that that's something that goes well for you. Now, if someone's interested in what you've been talking about, are you happy for them to get in touch?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if anyone, even to reach out to myself, I know there's a lot of younger people that perhaps probably are in a very similar situation that I was. So absolutely reach out to me. I can obviously share my details.
So we'll get the details in the show notes. And is there anything else you wanted to tell us about today or talk about today?
I think just when you're looking at aesthetics, I think really think about and focus what that means to you and how you internalise that. Don't get fooled by everything that you see, but really research and look into treatments if you're going to have them, or devices if you're going to have them. There are some great pieces of kit out there that will give you really great results, but just do your homework.
Okay, I think that's great advice. I want to thank you, Lauren, for coming along.
Thank you for having me.
And that is another UnEDited conversation. See you next time.
That's a wrap on another episode of UnEDited. Make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications so you never miss an episode. Find all of our updates on your favourite social media and podcast platforms. Just search for the UnEDited podcast.